Hello everybody, this is Nancy from the summer weekday batch. I know you know who it is already, but not everybody does, and we keep getting more people watching the videos and getting on the mailing list, so I'll just keep introducing myself. It has been a very, very long day. I finished part 3. Oh, does that mean you finished part 2? No, I haven't finished part 2. I did it out of order. I got very confused today because when Jay was teaching all this stuff, he taught us first about the variables and the loops, and then he taught us about data tables, and then he taught us about Excel. Then in our homework it said, well, do this thing first, and then do the Excel, and then do the data tables. And mentally that actually threw me for quite a loop. So I started on the Excel, and then I got stuck on something with that, and then I left it. And then last night before I went to bed, I created a script for the third part, the one to do with the data table, saying, oh, then I'll add all the stuff to it tomorrow. And it turns out I could not use that website at all because at the very end of it, the very last thing, everything ran successfully, but you got a pop-up box that actually didn't do anything because it was a website to test yourself, to learn how to fill out a job application, so it didn't actually do anything. And I said, oh, good Lord have mercy. And I finally just tossed it. And he said, you know what? I'm going to find another website that does debt snowball calculation. These are great websites. So I found another one. It's called debtfreechristian.com. Hey, you know what? I'm not Christian, but who cares? We're all friends, and we can all use each other's websites. And then I just did what I usually do, and I will walk you through what all I did. So the first thing I do when I find a website that I like is I bookmark it so I don't lose it. So as you can see, I have a bunch of debt snowball calculators here. This is the debtfreechristian.com, and this is what the page looks like. It's super duper simple, as these tend to be. I think most of them are nonprofit organizations, so they don't spend a lot of money on our websites, and that's good for us, because that makes it very simple for us to grab and input information. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I've used 4 debt snowball calculators so far, and until they stop me, I'm going to keep on using debt calculator snowballs or debt snowball calculators. All right. So what my typical way of doing things is, and I'll go through it, I do not leave a whole bunch of comments in, but for my own reference, we have to export this to an Excel sheet in order to save that information that is only runtime information. And I just put this up here. Once I got that, I put it here and commented it out, so when I needed it, I could just stick it in there. It's an easy way to keep yourself from having to search around later. Option explicit, very first thing you start, and then ignore this commented what? Out. The usual thing, system util, close, process by name, and system util.run. I did not make these as variables. And then my dim, and then my variables, and then set my browser, and then grab the stuff for object spy. And then honestly, I have watched the videos in part or in total multiple times. I have them playing in the background while I'm doing the script because I just could not understand how to do the get RO property and how to keep track of it, what I was supposed to do. And then finally, I would say 8th or 9th time watching it through, it finally clicked for me, and then it started getting easy. Alhamdulillah, I'm very happy about that. And then we had to have 2 verification points, and I did that, and instead of doing a message box saying we're in the right place, I wrote it to the data table, verified 1 and verified 2. And then I did an get RO property value, and got the value of this thing right here, which is the payment amount when you use the debt snowball. And what was really interesting about it, how when Jay was teaching us how to do that, he had inner text in here. And that didn't work for me because inner text stayed empty. So what I had to do, in order to find out what property I needed to capture in order to find the value, was I ran the script so that I had this information in it, right? And while I had this information in it, I did object spy. All right, and then I copied it, opened up my notepad, and pasted it. And then I looked which property had this number, $1,850 in it. And as I came down, it wasn't title, it wasn't inner text. As you see, nothing has that value in it. Inner text is still empty except for value. So it turned out that value was the property that was capturing the value that I would be needing, that would be changing for each iteration. So sometimes you have to do a little hunting. Don't just blindly take, just because Jay said it was inner text on what he was doing, it doesn't mean it's going to be inner text on what we were doing. So sometimes you have to object spy after you have run the script and when you have numbers in here, and then you see where those numbers end up. And in here, they ended up in the value property. So I was able to put that in. Now we might need that just in case. I was able to put that in as my get RO property, and it worked. And then I had more stuff and more stuff and more stuff, which we'll go into in a little bit more detail. Okay, so as is my usual habit, I started out with the basics, this and this, systemutil.close process by name, systemutil.run, and then I started capturing things with object spy. And the first thing I did was set my browser, because you never, why type all of this every single line, which would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, when you can just set your browser to equal this, type it once, and then for the rest of the time you're just typing in my browser. And of course, you run up and you dim it. And I just realized I saved everything and I turned it in, and I have this I, which I don't need, but I'm just going to leave it in there. We don't need the iteration in here because the data table itself will run through. And we'll get to that in just a minute. And then I took my different things here and I said creditor 1, and don't worry about this stuff over here, creditor 1, balance 1, rate 1, payment 1, creditor 2, balance 2, rate 2, payment 2, then the budget, which is the amount of money you're going to throw at the debt every month, and then this expected snow pay is the one that I really was having trouble with, because I was not learning how I had to go capture that value, because you really have to do it manually. It's a pain in the tushy, let me tell you, but it had to be done. All right, so when we are assigning values to our variables, it's just a matter of memorizing the syntax. Now, you're doing a lot of manual stuff in here, which means you're going to come down here and you're going to view data. When you first open that up, it's going to be completely empty, and it's going to be A, B, C, D, E, F, G across the top. Nothing in here. In order to change it from being just whatever letter to whatever you want, you double click. Don't know why it's not doing it. Here we go. You double click on the letter, on this what the current name of the column is. It's going to be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and mine I've already changed it. So you double click on it and then you type in whatever you want to type. I have creditor 1, so I made it creditor 1. Balance 1, balance 1. Rate 1, rate 1. Payment 1, payment 1, and on down. My variables here are going to be the names of my columns here. Okay? Very simple. And then you just start making up fake information to put in. So I have 2 columns for creditors, because on this one, in order to get a good result, you need at least 2 debts. And I wasn't going to kill myself and put in 3 debts this time. I think I got plenty of information, because he said, we had to have at least 3 things in here. So I said, I'm not going to be the woohoo, I'm so gung-ho. I stopped after 2 lines. So I have a school, I said, okay, what am I going to call my creditors? Let's say school loan, Visa, Amex, Discover, and car loan. And then I have another creditor. Here's the other line, because the snowball calculator is going to add those together. And I said, oh, I'm just going to use the same stuff, but I'm going to use it in different order. Visa, Amex, Discover, car loan, school loan. You can tell I'm getting tired because I'm getting less creative, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. And the same thing. I chose the school loan. I said I got a balance of $10,000. The Visa is $500. The Amex is $300. The Discover is $100, and the car loan is $2,000. And then the same thing. Since I put these out of order, I just, if the school loan here was $10,000, then the school loan here was $10,000. If the Visa was over here, was $400, $300, I made it $400. I just made up my numbers. Some are the same, some are different, no big deal. I kept my interest rates the same, just copy, paste right over, no big deal. And let's see, for my budget, I just increased it by 100 each time. 100, 1100, 1200, 1300, 1400. And then we have to, these numbers did not come out of thin air unless you want to get a fail on everything. You have to plug in this stuff manually in order to get that information. So let's go ahead and do that. I will show you a couple of times what I did. The name doesn't matter because we're looking for numbers. Doesn't matter what name we have here. So that means my first balance has to be $10,000. My first rate will be 3.25. My first payment will be $200. Then my second, my second balance will be $400. Then 3.25. Then 75. And I can't forget to change my budget every time. I forgot that and got wrong numbers the first time around. So I have to tell this just like when Jay was trying to find on the Edmunds.com website. Every time, what was he doing? He was putting in the monthly payment. He was putting in the trade-in. He was putting in the amount owed. He was putting in all those tedious numbers in order to get the max payment that you're expected to have. You needed to capture that value, right? I have to do the same thing with my numbers. So I'm going to go 10,000 and 3.25 and 200. All right, that takes care of balance 1, rate 1, payment 2. I am still on the same line. Okay, now I have to do 400, 3.25, and 75. And I am going to throw my little thing here. I'm going to throw $1,000 at this debt every month because that's what I have on that line. Okay, then I calculate the results, and then the number that I chose to capture was your payment amount when using the debt snowball, which is this one right here. So as you can see, I came up with the number 1275, so I pasted 1275 in here. Okay, this is the thing that I had the hardest time understanding because I was not grasping that I physically have to put all this stuff in and make it calculate so that I can get a number, because this is a very manual tester type thing to do, right? But that's the way it has to be done. So let's do one more line. So now to get this expected snowball payment, I have to put in these three numbers and these three numbers, which correspond to these three numbers plus these three numbers. Okay, so that's going to be 300 and 1.75, oops, 5 and 50. And then the next line on my website, but the same line on my data table, 200, 1.5 and 50. And then this time I'm going to throw 1100 at it. And then I'm going to tell it to calculate. And then I got 1200. What did I do wrong this time? 200, 1.550, 300, 1.7550, and 1100, 1225. For some reason it came out different, but it ran correctly and I got all passes when I did it, so I'm not going to change anything. Let's see, 300, 175.50. And, oh, wait, no, oh, I was on the wrong line. It was supposed to be 500, 1.575. 500, 1.5. 75. See how hard it is? You can really have a hard time seeing. Okay, so it should be 500, 1.575, then 200, 1.550, and 1100. Calculate the results. This time I got it right, 1225, okay? Because I had just now put in the wrong information. But as you see, that's how I did it. I worked my way down the thing manually, then clicked on calculate, and then copied and pasted that over there. That is the thing that I'm going to capture, right? So I have all my numbers put in, and I actually didn't choose this until after I had done get RO property. I chose my snowball pay as my get RO property verification, right? So let's see. So 2 verification points, 3 results. All iterations must have overall pass-fail. So this is how I did the pass. This is where the pass-fail comes in. The pass-fail, you have to use get RO property to find a value and compare it against what you expect. So you have to get actual results to compare them against your expected results. I just manually found my expected results, and then in order to, I put this code in here. I did snow pay, which is that snowball pay, equals my browser web edit. I went into Object Spy, and then I found the 3 properties and values, and then get RO property. And as I said, there was nothing in inner text, and there was never going to be anything in inner text. So I had to go here and do Object Spy after I had made sure there was a number in here, and then figure out where that number was, and the number was inside the value property, right? And then I didn't want to write any messages, and I didn't want to print anything, so everything I wanted to write to the data table. And this is actually pretty simple once I understood it. So once I did this RO, then I said, okay, I'm going to write it to the data table. I'm going to write it in the column actual snow pay on the global sheet. I know this is complex, but hopefully between what you've learned from Jay and your own working around, you can understand where I'm coming with this. So that I'm telling it, I'm going to find this information, and every time this script runs, it's going to do line 1, and it's going to stick the actual snow pay here, and then it's going to go line 2, and it's going to pull that value and stick it here, and then it's going to run line 3, and it's going to pull that value and stick it here until you have the actual. Then, because I told it to, I said write it to the data table, actual at the position actual snow pay on the global sheet. Write this snow pay. So take this snow pay, which is whatever this is, and write it in here. Okay? And then I said, if this actual is the same as this expected, then to the data table, write test passed in this thing here under the pass-fail column on the global sheet. As you see, I'm on the global sheet. And then I said, if it is not the same, if this actual number is not the same as that number that I painstakingly typed in all the stuff in and calculated, then say test failed. Okay, so that is the pass-fail thing. Took me forever to understand it. It's really not that complicated, but Jay gives so many little bits of information in so many different pages. Like this information was early on Tuesday, and then the data table stuff was late or middle on Wednesday. So by the time I got to the data table information for Wednesday, I had totally forgotten about the stuff on Tuesday, and it took a lot of searching for me to kind of find where in the recording I needed to be. And then I'm scrambling and making sticky notes and all this stuff, and the kids are coming and talking, and they're like, don't talk to mommy. Mommy can't talk right now. And then I finally got it. All right, so that takes care of our pass-fail. That is one of the things was we have to have a pass-fail. So I calculated the expected snow pay just like Jay did with the Edmunds.com website by painstakingly plugging in all those numbers and getting the max rate. I did the same thing. I painstakingly plugged in all my numbers, calculated it, and got this rate. And then I told my script, hey, you know what? Get the value, the property value, off of the same place where I got the expected value, and then we're going to compare the two, and if they're the same, you're going to say test pass. They're not, test fail. That's that. Now we also had to have 2 verification points. Let me double check. Yes, 2 verification points throughout the test, which is like a checkpoint, but we don't call it a checkpoint because you don't have checkpoints in descriptive programming when you do these verification points. That is the exist function. I'm not going to call it a function. That is the exist thing. And that is an if-then. And I put it up here. I actually put it before I did my get RO property value. But honestly, I don't think it matters. So that means you just got to capture a couple of elements on the page. And for my thing, I said, well, to make sure I'm on the right page, I'm going to capture this element right here. So I did. That's this one right here. And then, since we have to have 2, to doubly ensure I'm on the right page, I'm going to capture this element right here. And so I did. So I started out just like this. Okay, so first I captured it. So first I captured that first one by saying .exist. So I'm asking it, does this exist on the page? And then I said, if it does exist on the page, what can you do? You can do if, you can tell it if this stuff exists on the page, then what can you do? You can do message box. Then message box, we're on the right page. And if. But I didn't want to do that because that would give me a pop-up message box every time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times that I have to click on, and I'm a lazy bum. So I said I'm going to write it to the data table instead, just like I did my pass-fail. So what did I do instead? I said if this thing exists, then write to the data table under the verify 1 column of the global sheet. Under the verify 1 column of the global sheet. Make that equal to verified 1. And if. Then, since we had to have 2 of those, I did the exact same thing with my other verification point. All right. Now, as you see, there is nothing showing here because these are runtime results. As Jay explained to us, these only show up when you're in runtime, when the script is actually running, and then they go away. And it will take me too long, and I'm too lazy to go step by step by step with you to show. So what I am going to do is run the script. Let me see if there's anything that might be questionable again here. Just a second. But I hope you understand. You know, we made up these numbers. All this stuff, the words and the numbers are made up. They came out of thin air, came out of my head. This line, the expected snow pay, that did not come up out of my head. That was calculated by plugging in those numbers to this form manually, calculating it, and then cutting and pasting that number right there for each line. Yes, pain in the tushy, but you know what? It has to be done. And then it's going to compare it, stick this here. It's going to make say, did they match? Yes, pass, no, fail. Our verification points are going to go here, and then it's going to disappear, which it is supposed to do. So let's just take a real quick look top to bottom, and then we will run this script, and then I will show you my Excel, and then we will be done. Option explicit, where I'm going to save it to, which I'm going to get down to at the bottom. The usual stuff: system util close process by name to close any open window, system util.run, iexplore.exe, and then my website, which I did not do variables. Dim all your variables. You know what? I'm not sure. I don't even think verified 1 and verified 2 are actually variables, but I'm leaving them in there because I'm scared to leave them out, because they're just the title of our they're the title of our here and in the data table. But you know what? It's been a long few days. I'm not gonna mess with it. Then we have our variables. And we got those variables from the data table. Very simple syntax here. Creditor 1 equals data table, then the name of the first column, and global. And then balance 1 equals the second column and the global sheet. The only thing you have to make sure you got it inside parentheses, and each of these is in separate quotation sets with a comma in between. And so we went down there, and then I said, another variable that expected snowball payment from the data table. And then I set my browser so I didn't have to write this 10 times. And then we pull our stuff from Object Spy, and then we plugged our variable names in here. And then we got our 2 checkpoints. And then we did the get RO property value and pull the numbers. And then we said write it to the data table, and then we said if the expected is the same as actual, say test pass. If not, say test fail. And then I'm going to export it, save it to a an Excel file that I created before this, just for that purpose. The only other thing before we run is, remember, we're dealing with multiple iterations here, and we have to make sure that we have told UFT to run through all of the rows. So we go to File, Settings, Run, and we tell it run on all rows. Now and it understands, unlike Excel where you have to tell it only use the rows that actually have stuff in it. If you tell the data table run on all rows, it's going to run all the rows that have data, and it's going to ignore everything on down, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, this is the one that's going to get you, because if you have it on run one iteration only, it's only going to do line 1, and you're going to go, oh my god, what did I do? So you do that. Alright, we have a script, we're done, we're ready to run. Then I'm going to show you the results, remind you of how we're supposed to get the results out to Jay, and then I am going to take a break, have some ginger ale, watch some Law & Order SVU, and be done with it. Okay, so now we're going to run. Hands off the computer. Boom, 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 boom. That's the first one. Boom, 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 boom. Every time I see this graphic pop up, I think it's like a big virus or something. It looks like a virus. I guess money can be a virus here. And then we just sit here and let it do its thing. Boom, 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 boom. I'll stop saying boom, 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 boom. Sorry. And there we go. And then we have my little thing here. Yay, 5 iterations passed. Yay, 5 steps passed. And these are the different iterations. And once again, this doesn't mean anything, but it really looks cool to know that you did that and you got all these neat little results. And then I'm going to look at my data. These are still empty. right? Because those were runtime objects only. So I want to look at output. My output is already up. No, not output, sorry. It was so funny because when I was running it, I was getting a nice little data pane with everything in it. But what it did is it saved it to Excel. So what I'm going to do now, minimize this, and then this is my Excel. Alrighty. As you can see, everything worked. Here are my columns, and as you see, that's my expected. And then remember, I calculated those. The computer, the UFT captured those, and then they matched, so I got test pass. And these are my verification points, and they both were verified. And that's it. That is it. And I know it's saved, and I'm paranoid, so I'm going to save it again and close it. And then whenever I get things ready to be sent in as homework, I kind of move them on the desktop to where they need to be. Like this is the script from part 1, and this is the text document from part 1, which is where we save the output from the bottom of the page. And then that's part 4, the question and answer thing, which I just let Google do. So that's part 1. This is part 3. Now, what we're supposed to do, we are not sending zip files anymore. Whoops, no, that's just the homework thing. I don't want that. That's the instructions. We are not supposed to send zip files anymore. So what you're supposed to do instead is copy and paste. And when I copy and paste it into a Word file, I always, you have the option of, just let me show you. Copy. Whoops. Just trying to show you something, just like. When you're going to paste, you have the option of keeping the source formatting, or just, you know, if it's text, it'll just do it black and white. So when I am doing the stuff from UST, I tell it to keep the source formatting. So see, it looks exactly like it does from UFT. That's why you want to do it in a Word document and not in text, because Notepad isn't going to do this for you unless you use Notepad++, but he said do a Word document, so you want to do it a Word document. So, and then this is a little hard to read, but this is the table that popped up on my UFT, inside UFT. It's my data table until I mess with things, and it has all that stuff in here from the runtime. And I just stuck that in there as a little picture because he wanted that. And then this has my entire script, and that's it. I'm not going to save that. Nope. So I have that, and I have that. So I have part 1, part 3, part 4, part 2 is in process, but it's not done. I'm not going to haul it over here until I'm done. And then I'm going to review everything, make sure I've done everything correctly before I attach each of these to one single email and turn it in. Okay? And I did print off my instructions and also some of the notes on the syntax for data tables and Excel sheets and all that stuff like that, because it's a little easier for me to look at. And I'm done. That's it. I'm going to let you guys get back to whatever you're doing, probably the same thing I'm doing on this lovely Saturday evening. And I'm going to close my UFT for a while. And I will see you kind and gentle folks on Tuesday, because I will not be able to come up tomorrow. I will be finishing up my homework, and then we have a bonfire and a marshmallow roast to go to in the evening. You guys have a lovely evening and a safe Sunday, and we will see you on Tuesday. Bye-bye.